Okay, I call to order the June meeting of the Lafayette Common Council. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Will the clerk conduct a roll call?
Heidi?
Here.
Blinker?
Here.
Reynolds?
Here.
Campbell?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Allersmeyer? Here. Williamson?
Here.
Downey?
Here.
Nargi?
Here.
Quorum present.
Okay. First on the agenda is a public hearing, so we need to recess for a public hearing. Do I have a motion, Mrs. Olson?
Madam President, I move for a recess for a public hearing and consider the ordinances that are up for public hearing at this point.
Okay. Mr.
Second.
Brown? Okay, we got a second, Mrs. Olson?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2020-13.
An ordinance for appropriation of a local option highway user tax funds, County Wheel Tax Fund 2490.
Okay, did the clerk receive any phone calls or emails concerning this ordinance?
I have not.
Okay, the next public hearing is on ordinance 2020.
An ordinance for appropriation of a public safety local income tax funds, Public Safety Lit Fund 2240.
Okay, did you receive any emails or phone calls about this ordinance?
I have not.
Okay, so we need to reconvene the council meeting. Mr. Clinker,
So moved.
Mr. Heidi,
Second.
roll call.
Heidi?
What is this?
We need to do a roll call vote for, to reconvene, or to reconvene to the meeting.
Roll call for the recess. Okay.
Mr. Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell? Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downey?
Aye.
Motion passed to reconvene to the regular meeting.
Okay, you've received the minutes of the May meeting. Are there any corrections?
I move that those minutes be approved as communicated.
Okay, and Mr. Downing?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Heidi?
Here.
Blinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downey?
Aye.
Minutes approved.
A presentation and disposal of claims,
There are none.
presentation of petitions and communications,
There are none.
reports of city offices on file in the city clerk's office.
Fleet maintenance monthly April, police department monthly April, renew department monthly April, waterworks department monthly April.
Okay, all these reports are on file at the clerk's office and can be viewed weekdays from 8 to noon and 2 to 4:30. Okay, ordinances for second reading, ordinance 2020-11.
An ordinance to vacate a utility easement in the city of Lafayette, Indiana.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds,
I move to hear ordinance 2020-11.
Mrs. Williamson.
Second.
Okay, I think Mr. Riley, you're speaking to this.
Yes, thank you. I don't really have much to add to what was said at the first reading, but Kevin Riley with Riley Teeter Schreier. I represent the Church of Christ at Lafayette. Church plans to tear down its existing building on Creasy Lane and build a new 21,340 square foot facility. In order to build that facility, we have to vacate a platted utility easement. The church owns the property adjacent to the easement. We've discussed this vacation with the city engineer's office. And our understanding is they have no objection to this request. So we're requesting your approval of the petition. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the council members for Mr. Riley? Did we receive any emails concerning this, clerk?
None.
Okay. So will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-11?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell.
I think that's me. Aye.
Yes, okay. Brown. Brown.
Aye.
Allersmeyer.
Aye.
Williamson. Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next. Okay, thank you. Next ordinance for second reading is ordinance 2020-12.
An ordinance amending section 2.01.020A of the Lafayette Municipal Code to change the time of the regular common council meetings.
Okay, Mr. Brown? Did he say anything?
Barry, on mute.
I
Okay.
second this.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion to put it on in a second?
I move.
I
Madam
move to
President,
approve
I
ordinance.
So moved.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, got it. Okay, any comments or concerns from the council members about this? Okay, any
Just the
emails about this, the clerk?
None.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, will the clerk?
Just the ones I shared last month, Madam Speaker, or Madam President.
Okay. Okay, any others? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-12?
Heidi? Heidi?
Aye.
Blinker?
No?
Reynolds?
aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-1.
Okay, ordinance 2020-13.
An ordinance for appropriation of local option highway user tax funds, county will tax fund number 2490.
Okay, Mr. Downing?
I move to hear and approve ordinance 2020-13 on second reading.
Mr. Campbell?
I move to hear and approve ordinance 2020-15 on first and final reading.
Okay, and then, okay, we need a second then. Mr. Heidi?
Second.
Second, okay. Is
Madam
anybody gonna-
President, would you like me to speak to that?
Yeah, why don't you just briefly remind us?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, before you have the annual appropriations ordinance for the local option highway user tax known as the wheel tax. As you know, last month I gave a detailed presentation and you were provided a list of the roads that would be paved with that funds, along with I gave an update on the community crossing grants and the road construction that would be paid for out of those funds. As you know, when we created the wheel tax, we made a commitment to our citizens at that time that we would appropriate this separately, so it would be fully transparent. And we have done that for the last several years, and this is the second reading to appropriate the $950,000, and we're hoping to get paving underway this month. So we'd appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or concerns from the council members? Were there any emails concerning this?
There were none.
Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-13?
Heidi?
Aye.
Blinker?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Campbell?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay, ordinance 2020-14.
An ordinance for the appropriation of a public safety local income tax funds, public safety lit, Fund 2240.
Mr. Clinker? Did he say anything?
No, he's muted.
Sorry.
There you
Yeah, ordinance 2020-14, move for hearing on second reading.
Okay, and Mr. Heidi?
Second.
Okay.
Madam President, I'll take care of this one.
Okay.
Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the Common Council, before you is the appropriation ordinance for the public safety local income tax fund. As you know, that was a fund that went through the process with all the local jurisdictions and the Income Tax Council. At that time, we had to then send that information off to the state to get formal and final approval. Once we got that and the calculations were done, that money is beginning to come into to the community. This is an ordinance that allows us then to appropriate that money for expenses within the police fire department as it pertains to public safety, as it was not contained in the original budget appropriations because it had not been finalized and approved by the state of Indiana at this time. So there's a budget attached to the ordinance. I do not believe that we will spend all of that this year, but there is a budget that at least gives you an idea of where those potential expenses would be. So we would appreciate your support on this ordinance so our controller can incorporate this then into the previously approved budget and move forward.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Any questions from council members about this ordinance?
Oop.
Were there any emails or communications about this ordinance?
There were none.
Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote for ordinance 2020-14?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay, ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 2020-15.
An ordinance authorizing the city of Lafayette, Indiana to issue its taxable economic subordinate revenue bonds, Ellsworth project, and authorizing and approving other actions in connection therewith.
Okay, Mrs. Williamson?
I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2020-15 on first and final
Second.
reading.
Okay, and we have a second. Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the council. We have an ordinance before you for a project known as the Ellsworth. It's something that we are incredibly excited about. We've been working for almost 4 to 5 years to make this project a possibility here in our community. We're thrilled to be working with Shelby Bowen and his team at Rebar Development, and I don't want to take his thunder away here, so we're going to start with Shelby making a presentation on the project. Then we're going to go to Colin Cochran with the Denton Law Firm on the process, and then Jason Simler, who is our financial advisor with Baker Tilly, that will go through some of the financial numbers for you. But we believe this is a tremendous use of a vacant piece of ground right now, and continue to make community development for Greater Lafayette, specifically for downtown. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shelby to make his presentation. We'll have the other speakers speak and answer any of your questions. And then at the end, if you have some additional questions for me, I'll be happy to answer that. So Shelby, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Good evening, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Really appreciate your time. Certainly, we're here first and foremost because of the mayor's leadership and perseverance. Would not have happened without him, Dennis, and their staff over the last several years, kind of getting us to this point. First, in kind of acquiring the site from Regions, and then second, collaborating with the state of Indiana to really elevate the quality of architecture and construction on this site. So my name's Shelby Bowen. I'm president of Rebar Development. And we really specialize in these projects. And as Dennis will tell you, I have been looking downtown Lafayette for the better part of 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And I'm excited to be here in front of you all. Even in the last 18 months, really, is how long it's taken us to get to this point. And we're excited. And a lot of that, as I said earlier, is a result of our partnerships, not just with the city and their staff, but the state of Indiana really is paying attention to what's happening in Lafayette and greater Tippecanoe County. And when we approached them about investing in this project, they were excited to do so because they felt like it was an important part of what you all have already accomplished in the last decade or more. Also, Axis is our architect, and I hope that you are as impressed with the design as we are here on our team. And I can tell you we've spent a lot of time with the mayor and Dennis, and they have pushed the architecture to a level that's really unprecedented. It's just a beautiful building that I'm very proud of. And then First Bank and Trust, which has a local presence there. They, from the beginning, said we want to be a part of this project, and they will be our financing partner. So as we were looking in downtown Lafayette, of course, we used your downtown plan as a guide on maybe some opportunities to redevelop, and have all along kind of really liked this parcel and this corridor. And so for us, it was just a matter of staying diligent and working with Regions, who has been fantastic. You know, this is owned by the corporate Regions out of Alabama, so things just moved a little slower, but they're excited, and the folks locally have been fantastic to work with. And we think that this just fits beautifully into kind of your vision from a few years ago, which I'm sure has been ongoing since then. Certainly feel free to jump in if you have questions as I go through, or we can discuss at the end. So the Ellsworth, as you can see, just beautiful brick, stone architecture, certainly across the building. And one of the first things that I love about it too is, and the mayor and Dennis and his team challenged us to integrate the parking so that it doesn't look like a municipal or surface parking. But the reality is the first floor of this is open parking, with the exception of commercial space that's along South Street. All of the units have balconies. All of the units have great views. And certainly the crown jewel, I think, of this development is our amenities are on the 5th floor, and including a rooftop patio that overlooks downtown. So this is actually facing west, and will just be a tremendously cool, unique amenity feature for our residents. Something unique to Central Indiana, and something we're just really excited about. The other thing that's cool about this project is, you can't really see it here, but on the 2nd floor, and we'll look at the floor plans here in a second, there's a courtyard that's actually above the parking, so it's raised off of surface level, and there'll be a dog park for our residents. So it's really kind of a cool feature that we've not seen anywhere, where it will have a dog park for our residents that's actually essentially a rooftop. This is the view on South Street. And Dennis and the mayor, encouraged us to activate the street level with commercial space. But as you all know, there's already a lot of great commercial space in downtown. So our project has 2,000 square feet, which was really just the minimum to activate that streetscape, but not overburden the project or our neighbors with a lot of commercial space. This we have done a project here in Fishers, Indiana, where we created smaller, really what are essentially commercial studios for mom and pop small business. And even during this pandemic, our tenants have managed to get through it because it's an affordable rent, smaller space. They're not saddled with a long-term lease. And I can envision potentially that same model working here as well. And then this is just to show you, you get to see the culmination of several months of work, but this is a result of the mayor and Dennis pushing us to evaluate all elements of the building, making sure we were using quality materials and integrating the design. Really, when we sat down, it was about wanting this to look like either A, it's been here 100 years, and B, look great 100 years from now. Quick look at the site plan and floor plans. Here, you're familiar with the site. It's the half block that's just east of Regions Bank. And again, they've been a great partner and have collaborated with us for this plan. And we love the fact that we can still maintain some surface parking, but we'll have some covered parking as well. This is the floor plan model. So the inside of the U is facing west, and that's the where we talked about the courtyard on the second floor. And then, as you'll see here on the 5th floor, our amenities and rooftop patio, which is just going to be really, really unique feature. So without belaboring all of the points, one of the things that really was a result of the mayor and his team pushing us to kind of exceed expectations on architecture and quality is, you know, that comes with a higher cost. And that's resulted, not only in the city's investment, which you all are reviewing and considering tonight, but the state of Indiana's investment as well. And we've been open book. 100% of the projects that I have done personally and our firm has done have been public-private partnerships. And I'm very proud of the relationships and reputation we have as municipal partners, and this is no different. And the state of Indiana agreed, and so they're contributing a $2 million redevelopment tax credit. Something unique about that is we don't receive that credit until we've made the investment. So we'll actually make the full $17 million investment and then be eligible for that award. We went through over the last year and just really tried to hit the high notes on some of the goals you all have set out, combined with some of the things that I have seen in other projects that we have developed. And something that we are doing unique to this project is trying to share parking. So for instance, in other projects I originally have been involved in, the residential component typically tries to reserve all of the parking all of the time. And what's interesting about there is if you go to a residential project like that on a Tuesday at 10 a.m., you'll see a bunch of empty spaces that are reserved for residents who aren't there. So here, the mayor and Dennis and I agreed to essentially pilot this nesting program where half of our spaces will be public at times, presumably where a lot of our folks are gone. And so I'm really eager to see us maximize that opportunity in an area that's growing and probably high demand for parking. And then all of the things that you would expect and that we have seen in similar projects, I think that our project fulfills those goals and hopefully exceeds some of the goals that we've set out to achieve. Finally, certainly it's a substantial investment in downtown. We're excited about the momentum in Lafayette. There's other great projects near us in downtown that we think raises the bar for everyone. Redevelops a key parcel that's right along a primary corridor and entrance from West Lafayette. We are an experienced and transparent partner. And I really like the fact that I think we're setting the bar for a high standard of architecture and development. Certainly I'm biased, but I think the building is beautiful and I know the materials are of high quality. And this is unique. A dog park on the 2nd floor, amenities on the 5th floor is just something that's really cool and unique to anything that I have seen. And finally, I'm requesting your support tonight and moving forward. We are ready. We are fully financed. and eager to get started, but certainly appreciate your opinions and questions and in the hopes that you will support this project going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shelby. Does anybody have any questions for him at this point in time?
You probably mentioned it before, but how many occupants will be in that building?
There's 97 units, and we don't have as many 2 bedrooms. So we're assuming probably a minimum of 120, but it's likely going to be higher than that, but better to be conservative in terms of residences.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, next will be Colin Cochran, the bond counsel.
Yes, good evening, council members. This is Colin Cochran with Denton's Bingham Greenbaum. We're serving as bond counsel for this transaction. I do apologize. I don't have my video feed up and running. I've got my laptop docked underneath my desk with what seems to be 40 cords coming out now. And I'm a little terrified to unplug it and get the camera out. So I'll just I'll be here over the audio. But the ordinance being introduced to you this evening is a very straightforward bond ordinance with very similar terms to bond ordinances that have come before this council for similar projects, probably most recently being the Nova Towers project. The ordinance will authorize the issuance of bonds in an amount not to exceed $4.5 million to support the project. Although when Jason Simler from Baker Tilly speaks, I think he'll speak to the overall financing package that will likely be less than that amount. The bonds themselves will be payable by a pledge of the increment generated from both allocation areas within the consolidated Creasy Central Economic Development Area. And the actual pledge of the increment will be solidified or crystallized by a resolution adopted by the Redevelopment Commission at its June 25th meeting. Bonds will mature, as noted in the ordinance, no later than 20 years following the date of issuance. They'll be sold really by either a negotiated sale or an open market transaction, with which Jason can speak a little more to. As terms of the overall process, we have another resolution on the docket later tonight that's more on the project approval side of this project. The ordinance itself gets more to the financing, and per statute, the first step in approving the financing was the city's Economic Development Commission both held a public hearing on the project and the issuance of the bonds. And once that public hearing was concluded, it adopted its resolution report approving both the project and the issuance of bonds. All that occurred at their May 21st hearing. And so now this ordinance is being introduced at this council tonight. So it's just an introduction, but we do anticipate coming back to the council for adoption at the scheduled July 6th meeting. Like I mentioned, there's going to be one little pledge of the increment resolution adopted by the RDC in between those 2 dates, but that would close out, once it comes back for adoption at the council, that would close out the public approvals needed for approving the financing of this project. I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions, or I'm sure Jason can add some more color to the specifics of the bond issuance as well.
Okay, council members, are there any questions right now? Okay, let's go on with Jason. Where is Jason?
I'm sorry, I had my mute on. Thank you, members of the council. This is Jason Simler, Baker Tilly, serve as financial advisor for you on this project. And as Colin mentioned, this is very similar structure as projects that you have done in recent years, such as Star Crossing and most recently Nova Towers. As was mentioned, the Redevelopment Commission is going to pledge tax increment from the consolidated Creasy Central area for bonds not to exceed $4.5 million. But just like your previous 2 projects, we're going to structure the size of the bonds based upon the tax increment, the new tax increment that's anticipated to be generated from the development. And working with the county assessor's office and Shelby, a developer, we're estimating that those taxes would be about $300,000 per year. And Shelby has agreed for the payments not to fall below that amount. So if for some reason the assessed value comes in less than anticipated, he's agreed, and the taxes come in less than $300,000, he's agreed to cover that shortfall. So the bonds are going to be based upon that $300,000 annual payment. So even though the taxes increment from both areas are pledged, we only anticipate using the tax increments generated just from this development to pay for the bonds. So the size of the bonds will be dependent upon the interest rate that we receive once we sell the bonds. And as mentioned, we're looking at all options. We're looking at negotiating with local banks, and we're also looking at doing a competitive sale. So we're looking at all options to determine what's the lowest interest rate we can get for the city and provide the largest incentive for the developer. And right now, based upon current interest rates, we're looking at a bond issue from about $3.3 to $3.5 million. Again, that will be finally determined based upon when the bonds are sold. And we're looking at about a 19-year bond issue. The documents allow a bond issue not to exceed 20 million, and these will be a little over 19 years. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from council members? Has there been any email questions concerning this, clerk?
No, there has not.
Okay. Okay, any other questions from council members? Last chance. Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on Ordinance 2020-15?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown, Perry, Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downey. Mr. Downey?
I saw his lips move.
Okay, he's shaking his head, yes.
Okay, ordinance passes 8-0. You guys are killing me.
Okay, next is Ordinance 2020-16.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Tippecanoe County to rezone certain real estate from R2 to NBU 723 North 13th Street, Thomas and Susan Reilly, petitioner.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds?
Madam President, I wish to hear and approve ordinance 2020-16 or 15.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, Mrs. Alsmeyer?
Second for 2020-16.
Okay, and I believe we have Tyler Oakes is going to speak to this, correct?
Yes. Good evening, Madam President and the council. Tyler Oakes, Ball Eggleston, on behalf of the petitioner, Tom and Susan Reilly. The Reillys are looking to rezone a house just south of a current property they own at the corner of 13th and Union. The rezone would allow them to put a commercial kitchen into this house. They plan to keep the house completely intact. They won't be changing anything except putting in the commercial kitchen. There will still be an apartment on the second floor. So they understand and appreciate the value of the historical Jeff neighborhood. So they don't want to do anything that would change the exterior of the house. So make sure it conforms with the area. And they essentially are going to run a food truck delivery service out of this commercial kitchen. They're currently doing it at the bar that they own at the corner of 13th and Union. And so this just allows them to expand. They've had a lot more demand. And this commercial kitchen just makes it easier for them to produce this food. Tom really has, and I believe Susan as well, really has a special connection to the area. They're from the area. They care about it. And they chose this area because not only is it adjacent to their current property, but they love the neighborhood and want to put some money into it and hopefully improve it down the road. I'm happy to take any questions. Let me know.
Okay, any questions from council members?
If I may ask, this was approved at the area plan unanimously, 16-0.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? Any emails about this, clerk?
There have been none.
Okay. Okay, let's have.
My paperwork shows that this was denied at APC.
Mhm.
The staff recommendation is denial, but I think Jerry just said the vote was 16-0 overriding that, right, Jerry?
That's correct. The only concern was about the Jefferson area, the historical area, and I think that they answered all the questions of the APC, and I think they answered all the questions tonight.
What do the neighbors have to say about this? My concern is increasing traffic and noise in a residential area.
Yeah, so they've currently been running the food truck business out of that lot they own at 13th and Union. And this commercial kitchen just makes the food production easier. So neighbors have not voiced any concerns. The people we spoke with in the area are excited that a business wants to develop there and put some money into the area. But the business has been run. So the traffic is not necessarily going to increase per se. If anything, it's just a little deviation of what's already been going on. This just makes it easier to produce the food.
Yeah, I drove by it today, and the tavern's there on South, and then they have a parking lot in the back where the food trucks are. There's an alley, and then the house is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So all they do is take it out of the house and put it into the trucks that are there already. So I didn't see any problem whatsoever. And we haven't had neighbors complain.
I also addressed the same thing you did, and I see nothing that was going to interrupt after investigating it.
Now, this might be more of a question for Ed, but if they sell the property and a new owner takes over, it's still zoned NBU, correct?
That's correct.
So what else could move in there under that zoning?
Well, a lot of low-level businesses, that's what that neighborhood business is. So as a practical matter, it doesn't sit on a location that's really visible. So I don't anticipate. More than likely, if they quit it as a kitchen, they'll probably go back to a residential.
Thanks, Ed.
Any other questions from council members?
Yeah, but to Laura's point, I mean, you could do a special exception in the R2, but in this case, I do agree with the MBU, but there is another option, and those are typically, from my old days on it, it was typically like bookstores, insurance agents, a couple of maybe a hairdresser, stuff like that, or kind of the NBU level of business.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-16?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you all.
Ordinance 2020-17.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance in Tippecanoe County. To rezone certain real estate from GB to I2 11 Skyler Avenue. Campbell Works petition.
Okay, did everybody hear that? Okay,
Can you read
Mr.
that
Clinker?
again? I didn't get it.
Mr. Clinker?
We're getting walked over here. I think Mr. Teeter's microphone is doing, but I would either move for 2020-17 to be heard or second it, either one.
Okay, you have it heard, and Mr. Heidi?
Second.
Second. Okay, and let's see, who's speaking to this one?
Dan Teeter.
Okay, Dan? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Good evening, Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Dan Teeter, attorney with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, represent the petitioner in this matter. Brittany Whitenake is available tonight, and she's an owner of the business, and she'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. We're requesting rezoning to I-2. The property is on Schuyler Avenue. It's just west of the bowling alley to give you some perspective where it is over there. We received a unanimous yes vote from the Area Planning Commission on this property as well. The property is surrounded totally by GB. We have I-3 less than a block away. This is a 1.1 acre tract. It supports the existing 16,000 square foot building that's on the site. It has sufficient land to have at least 17 parking spaces, and we have a loading dock on the south side of the building. The reason for the I-2 is twofold. One is to permit the use, and the second is to have outside loading. The loading dock that we have is not flush with the building. It's got a concrete platform with a walkway on it, so there's really no way for the truck to come right up to the building. There will always be a gap, and there could also be some loading in the parking lot as well. With I-2, we have the flexibility to have outdoor loading, which, like I said, we probably would have some of that. However, though, we're still required to keep everything else indoors, including manufacturing, contracting, warehousing, wholesale uses as well. So it acts more like an I-1, but it only allows for the outdoor loading. I want to say, as I said at staff or at area plan meeting as well, I'm really proud of Brittany, my client. She started this candle business about 7 years ago with nothing, and now has 31 employees. She does not have a storefront. Everything she does is online. She's in 350 stores in the United States and Canada as well. We've also received a tax abatement from the city. She's going to spend $1.1 million for the improvement to this site. We think it's a great addition, not only to the north end of town, but also to the city of Lafayette as a whole. And we would respectfully request your approval. I'd be happy to respond to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Mr. Teeter, this is Kevin Klinker. I was wondering, the outdoor zone or the outdoor loading, does that mean that it's a dock high and the truck backs up to the door and they load from the side of the building, or they actually do fork trucks outside? The
truck would back up to the walkway.
Okay.
And then there's also a incline cement stairwell as well that you could, carry some things up. But again, if you look at the strict interpretation of the ordinance under I-1, you can have nothing outside. So someone could say we're violating the ordinance because we've got this gap, and we just don't want to have those issues down the road. So the easier way to accomplish that is to go to I-2. It has everything indoors except for the loading.
Thank you, Mr. Teeter.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? Were there any
Reynolds, I just may add also this was a unanimous. After the explanation of the difference between the 1 and the 2 was, and it was explained to us that about the outside loading.
Any emails concerning this ordinance?
There were none.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-17?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
You're welcome. Next ordinance is 2020-18.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Tippecanoe County to rezone certain real estate from R2U and R3U to R3U, 9 South 8th Street, Spring Valley Management petitioner.
Okay, Mr. Campbell,
I move for passage of ordinance 2020-18 on first and final reading.
Mr. Downing.
Second.
Okay. And Chris Shellman is speaking to this. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the City Council. Tonight I'm here on behalf of Spring Valley Management and its principal, John Carone, who's a local developer who has made a significant impact on our downtown community, and in particular has a knack for preserving and rehabbing historic or outdated structures. The request before you today at its core is quite modest, and it's presented to you with the unanimous recommendation approval from the Area Plan Commissioner. Petitioner ultimately desires to rehabilitate the existing 4-unit structure that's over 100 years old that it recently acquired. The building is structurally sound, but it needs to be redone to have any viable, desirable future. In order to do that, petitioner is requesting a rezone to R3U, which is the same zone that surrounds it on 2 sides. The building is located just on South 8th Street off of South Street and surrounded by larger multifamily structures, all are 4 units or greater. Those are pretty well-known buildings in the area. Petitioner has redeveloped 2 of the properties on the block already that face South Street, and the riders developed the ones to the west.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to note that the lot or parcel immediately to the south of our project is also owned by petitioner, is not part of this rezone. That is because that area should remain R2U like the rest of the Ellsworth-Romig neighborhood. That's kind of the line of demarcation between these larger multifamily structures that exist here on the north end of South 8th Street versus the rest of the neighborhood as you go down up the hill or towards the library. Ultimately, this would permit John to rehab this structure and really give it a viable future. Quite frankly, if there isn't a rezone, the building will likely end up decaying and falling apart. But this opportunity and rezone would allow it to be preserved for the future. He's spoken with Dennis Carson, and they're looking forward to preserving the historic charm of the structure and keeping it, hopefully for years to come. If there are any particular questions, we'd certainly be happy to answer them, but we respectfully request your approval.
Any
Do you have
questions?
the wherewithal to make some adjustments on that building presently?
Without a rezone?
Yes.
We could not maintain its current condition with four units. We have financial wherewithal to make it. We just purchased it recently and are looking forward to redoing it entirely.
So you will remodel and improve that building as it sits there now?
Yes, just as the petitioner did along Columbia Street. The block of 8th and Columbia actually redid the entire block there. But in fact, John has won an award for historic rehabilitation in the city.
Thank you.
So will that be? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Nancy. Will that be 4 studio apartments? Did you say? I missed that, Chris.
They're not studios. I think they're currently one bedroom. I think they're about 800 square feet each. So it's a large structure.
Gotcha.
I have a question, Chris. The rezoning right now is R2U and R3U. Okay, how is that different than just plain R3U?
R2U is only 2-family, and there's currently 4 units. So if we were to rehab and remeter, we'd have to cut down to 2 units and get rid of the existing layout, which are currently functional and desirable, just not nice and modern.
Yeah, but it says the current one is both. How? I didn't quite get that.
Oh, I apologize. There's a little strip of the parcel that we purchased that was rezoned R3. There's already R3U. So just a tiny little strip at the north side, which was kind of the remnant lot off the back of the.
That wasn't with the building. The building is actually on R2U.
Yes, and
Okay,
if
that explains
you check
that.
my screen, I can
Okay.
show the request, but I need to be permitted to do that. But basically what we're proposing, squaring off the current section of R3U that exists. So that old section there can kind of
Make it all the same instead of,
exactly.
one building on having two different, zonings for one property. Okay, I get you. Okay, thank you. Any
Madam
other questions?
Madam
email?
President.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I just want to make a couple quick comments. As you know, in that area, we're currently working with Jeff Ryder to make some improvements in that area on South 8th Street. We've invested a significant amount of money in getting rid of the village pantry there at 9th and South and creating a neat little corner and moving some other sewer work with Brad Talley. This building in question, and I'm speaking because it's of particular interest to the city. That's been I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it, a problem property that we've been trying to find a solution to for quite some time, but because of the cost and some other financial factors with that, we've not been able to get that taken care of up to now. We think this is a tremendous opportunity with John Carone getting that building. Dennis Carson and John Collier met with him. He's agreed to keep the outside historically correct. As you know, he's a partner in the building right beside City Hall here, Pullman Station. He redid the Remax building up there at the corner of 9th and South, and he's done some really neat projects. And so we think this is something we've been trying to get accomplished for several years and just haven't got anybody willing to bite off the project because it's not going to be easy. And so we're very happy that someone like John has stepped up to the plate to take this on, and we really would appreciate your approval on this rezone.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments from council members? Any email comments on this, clerk?
None.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-18?
Heidi,
Aye.
Clinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downey.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay, ordinance, you're welcome. Ordinance 2020-19.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Tippecanoe County to rezone certain real estate from 22-112 and 22-17 Powderhouse Lane, Habitat for Humanity petitioner.
Mr. Reynolds?
I wasn't on. I move to hear ordinance 2020-19 for approval.
Okay, and Mrs. Williamson?
Second.
Okay. And Mr. Keeper, are you speaking to this?
Yes, good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Again, for the record, Dan Teeter with Riley, Teeter and Schreier. We're requesting the rezone to R1B. We received a favorable staff report, unanimous yes vote from the Area Plan Commission as well. The property is located on the east side of Powderhouse and north of Elston Road. The R1B allows a 50-foot wide lot. Habitat's going to build a product similar to what they build about a block northwest of this. That was a R1B section of 7 lots that we did about 2 or 3 years ago. So if this is approved, we're going to raise the existing house on the lot, and then we'll subdivide the lots. So our goal is to have 2 buildable 50-foot wide lots. There'll be a remaining 40-foot outlot, we'll call it, and that we will give to the Lafayette Park. So it's really a win-win for everybody. We would request your approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council members for Mr. Teeter?
The parks lot would abut the softball fields. Do I have the right street there?
Yes, I don't know if it's exactly abutting the softball fields, but it's abutting property that the Parks owns.
Yeah, it does up against the Crossman complex there, and they're going to donate it to us, Mr. Schuman, so we can build a storage building on it for the softball fields.
Okay, great.
Wonderful.
Any email comment on this ordinance?
There was none.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council members? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on 2020-19?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downey.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you very much.
Next is ordinance 2020-20.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance, Tippecanoe County, to rezone certain real estate from R1B to NB 1709 Teal Road to coincidental properties petitioner.
Okay, Mrs. Alsmeyer,
Madam President, I move we hear and consider ordinance 2020-20.
Mr. Brown.
Second.
Okay, and Sarah Wyatt is speaking to this, is that correct?
Yes, good evening. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Well,
is everyone able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes?
I can hear her.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a rezone from R1B to NB for Tecumseh Dental Properties. The dental office has been located on the first two lots, the corner lot and one lot in, since about 1984. And the dentists have purchased the next lot over for the purposes of expanding the dental practice and improving their parking area so that they are able to basically double their parking that's available in the space. We did receive unanimous approval at the Area Plan Commission and respectfully request your approval from the council. And I am available to answer any questions about the property that you may have.
Okay. Any questions from council members about this property?
Will this allow them to have that parking and an exit through the back streets, staying off the main roads? Do you know? I know there are sometimes collisions there because it's such a busy intersection.
Sure. The plan for the entrance and exit is for all of the parking to be coming off of 18th Street. So I don't know if you've been able to see the site plan that was included with the petition, but the entrance will still be on 18th Street, but the parking area will loop around the building. The improvement that we see is that we're removing two curb cuts off of 52, which they are currently using the driveway spaces for the two entrances on 52 as kind of overflow parking. So we'll be getting rid of those.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council members? Any emails about this ordinance?
There were none.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2020-20?
Heidi,
Aye.
Blinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downey.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Okay,
Thank
next,
you.
you're welcome. Next, we have resolutions. We have one resolution, 2020-12.
A resolution of the Lafayette Common Council approving an amended declaratory resolution and the plan of the Redevelopment Commission and the order of the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
I move for passage of resolution 20-2012 on first reading. There will be
Okay,
another
and Mr.
reading.
Downing? Mr. Downing?
Second.
Second. Okay, great. And Mayor, are you speaking to this or Dennis?
Dennis Carson's going to speak to this.
Okay, Dennis?
Actually, Colin, if you're still on the line, if you could speak to this.
Yep. Yeah, I can, Dennis. Thank you. This is Colin Cochran, once again with Denton's Bingham Greenbaum, serving as bond counsel for the Ellsworth project transaction that was discussed previously in this evening. And as we mentioned earlier, for this transaction as a whole, there's kind of two sets of public approval processes. One, to approve the issuance of the bonds and more the financing. We touched on that earlier this evening with the introduction of the bond ordinance. The second matter is really more project-based in that we need to approve an amendment to the existing EDA plan to include the actual project. And really, to amend the plan, I guess I'd first kind of reiterate that it's just an amendment to the plan itself. It's not an amendment to the actual area, although statute to amend the plan really requires the same steps as you would go through if you were actually amending the area or establishing a new plan. And so I'll kind of briefly walk through those steps, which really begins with a declaratory resolution adopted by the Redevelopment Commission. That resolution is then submitted to the County Area Plan Commission for its approval in written order. It then goes to the City Council for its approval, which is a step we're undertaking here. And then it winds up back at the Redevelopment Commission, where it will hold both a public hearing and then adopt a confirmatory resolution. So at this point, we have had the RDC adopt its declaratory resolution on April 23rd. That resolution was then submitted to the Tippecanoe Area Plan Commission and approved unanimously at its May 20th meeting. And now the process brings it before the council for its approval, and if approved, would be sent back to the Redevelopment Commission, where we anticipate they will hold a public hearing and adopt a confirmatory resolution on June 25th. And that would close out the public approval process in regards to amending the plan to have the project a part of the plan. And then there'd be the final step for the council to take in terms of adopting the bond ordinance, which we discussed on earlier for the financing piece. As far as the resolution, it's very straightforward, and once again, similar to what this board would have seen for similar projects in the past. It simply approves the RDC's declaratory resolution that allows an amendment to the existing EDA plan to incorporate this Ellsworth project into the plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay,
So
are there
you're
any?
saying that there will only be the one reading coming up on the 20-something of July or June?
I guess my understanding was going to be, since this is a resolution, that it would be passed in one meeting. I certainly would defer to Jackie if that's not the case, but that was my understanding.
That's correct.
The next meeting of the city council in July.
If you approve this resolution at this meeting, it goes back to the Redevelopment Commission for their confirmation. It only requires one reading by the city council, one reading and one approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions from council members? And clerk, was there any email communication about this?
There was none.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, will the clerk conduct a roll call vote for resolution 2020-12?
Heidi,
Yeah, aye.
Clinker,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer,
Aye.
Williamson,
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Okay. Are there any reports of standing committees? Reports of special committees? Reports by the mayor?
Madam President, just very briefly, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I just wanted to give you a quick update on yesterday's rally protest here in the community. And I'm not going to go into huge detail other than to let you know that I was in the operations center from 7 o'clock p.m. till 3 o'clock a.m. watching every feed and body camera activities that were taking place. And I will tell you that the vast majority of people that attended that rally came for the right reasons, to do the right thing. And we had good dialogue with them, myself and Mayor Dennis and Commissioner Brown, throughout the evening. Unfortunately, later in the evening, a few folks decided to take on some activities down at the county courthouse, unfortunately, that forced the sheriff's department to take some action, which I fully support what they did, and Sheriff Goldsmith and his decision. And that put us in a position then for our officers to respond, to begin to disperse the crowd. It was a great example of coordination between Lafayette, West Lafayette, the Sheriff's Department, Purdue Police Department, West Side, Indiana State Police, and Tees, our Lafayette Fire Department. Everybody worked together in a very professional way. Absolutely. I will tell you that proud of all of them. Our police department obviously took the lead on that big part of dispersing the crowd after the courthouse. And I can tell you that I've never been prouder of our police department. They worked with absolute integrity and professionalism, and did what they needed to do in an absolute proper way. And so I just wanted the council to know that the men and women of the police department did a tremendous job, showed great restraint, and act very professional. I'm very proud of them, and overall things went well. I was hoping for a perfect evening. You typically don't get those, but all things considered, it ended fairly well. So I wanted to just give you a brief report on that and let you know how well you should be proud of your city departments.
Mayor, would it be appropriate for the city council to also give them a slap on the back?
Well, the chief's on the line here. I think that'd be fine. I think if you just want to say something verbally today because of the structure of this meeting, the chief is on. I'm sure he'd be like to hear that.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Flannelly, for your leadership in that.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, thank you, Chief Flannelly. Appreciate all your hard work. Okay, miscellaneous and new business. Reports of councilmen. Okay, public comment. City Clerk, did we get any emails about public comment?
There were none.
Okay, no. Okay, and so Mr. Heidi.
Hey, I move to adjourn.
Mr. Clinker.
Seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 You need a roll call?
This
or
conference
no?
is no longer being recorded.
Roll call on that one.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Jerry, are you still there?
Yes.
I got a question from somebody about, you're on the ordinance committee for city council, for county council?
Yes.